Hello, everyone. My name is Tatiana, and I'm here to do a Bible study on Daniel 6. So, in the last video, we did Daniel 6 1 through 10, and in this video, we'll pick up from where we left off. So, we'll be doing Daniel 10. There's a little bit of overlap, so we'll be doing Daniel 10 through 28. So, in the last video, we saw yet again that Daniel was found blameless and obtained favor with King Darius, so much so that King Darius trusted Daniel to protect his own interest. The other officials and administrators, they were not appreciative of this, so they plotted against Daniel to find some type of blame, some type of fault in him to get him removed from his position. So they set a decree that anyone who worshipped any other god outside of King Darius, that they would be thrown into the lion's den. So we will pick up from there. So in addition to Daniel 6, 10 through 28, we have other scriptural references. So I'll put those here so that you'll be able to follow along. So grab your Bible, grab a pen, and let's dive right in. Daniel 6:10 reads, "But when Daniel learned that the law had been signed, he went home and knelt down as usual in his upstairs room, with its window open towards Jerusalem. He prayed 3 times a day, just as he had always done, giving thanks to his God." I love that Daniel's response, even though he knew the decree that was issued by King Darius, his response was prayer and thanksgiving. Here we see that Daniel is taking a stance not to worry, not to try to figure out a plan in his own strength, but his immediate response is to go to God, to go to the source, to go to the only one who can help him in this situation. And with faith, the outward expression of faith, it takes boldness, because faith has to be backed by some sort of action. What you do is a testament to what your faith is in. So Daniel, we can tell that his faith is in God, and his response is prayer and thanksgiving. Verse 11 reads, "Then the officials went together to Daniel's house and found him praying and asking for God's help. So they went straight to the king and reminded him about his law. 'Did you not sign a law that for the next 30 days, any person who prays to anyone, divine or human, except to you, your majesty, will be thrown into the den of lions?' 'Yes,' the king replied, 'that decision stands. It is an official law of the Medes and Persians that cannot be revoked.' 13. Then they told the king, 'That man Daniel, one of the captives from Judah, is ignoring you and your law. He still prays to his God 3 times a day.'" I just want to add a quick note here that they refer to Daniel as the captive. Daniel was captured in 605 BC. King Darius took over the Babylonian Empire in 539 BC. It's 66 years later, and that is still the label that Daniel is classified by. Despite the favor, despite the talents, they're outcasting him and persecuting him because of his faith and because of his identity as a captive. Verse 14 says, "Hearing this, the king was deeply troubled, and he tried to think of a way to save Daniel. He spent the rest of the day looking for a way to get Daniel out of this predicament." Verse 15 says, "In the evening, the men went together to the king and said, 'Your Majesty, you know that according to the law of the Medes and the Persians, no law that the king signs can be changed.'" I just want to add a quick note here. This is why it is important to pray for those in leadership. Regardless of what your opinion is about the person, regardless of what you agree with or what you do not agree with, we see that those in leadership, they may be surrounded by people who can negatively influence them, and that can have an impact on our lives. So we need to pray for those in leadership, for them to be surrounded with people who have godly wisdom, with people of integrity, that they are able to make decisions that show their integrity, but also that the people around them that influence them will be people of integrity and people of godly wisdom. Verse 16 says, So at last, the king gave orders for Daniel to be arrested and thrown into the den of lions. The king said to him, "May your God, whom you serve so faithfully, rescue you." 17. A stone was brought and placed over the mouth of the den. The king sealed the stone with his own royal seal and the seals of his nobles so that no one could rescue Daniel. In scripture, this is parallel to the stone that was rolled in front of the burial site of Jesus Christ when he was crucified. Similar to this instance, that stone that was rolled in front of the grave of Jesus was placed there so that no one could go at night to steal the body and pretend as though Jesus was risen from the dead. We see here that King Darius is being fair in terms of keeping his word. So he rolled a stone in front of the cave that Daniel was thrown in to make sure that no one rescues him. However, we know that God can turn around seemingly impossible situations, work it out for the greater good so that he can get the glory out of it. And I also want to note, Daniel, his faith was in God. He went directly to God in prayer and he asked God for help and he gave God thanksgiving and he still was thrown into the den of lions. Now I have a question for you. How does your faith look in the midst of adversity? Will your faithfulness to God still remain? That is definitely something to think about. Verse 18 says, "Then the king returned to his palace and spent the night fasting. He refused his usual entertainment and couldn't sleep at all that night." Verse 19 says, "Very early the next morning, the king got up and hurried out to the lion's den. When he got there, he called out in anguish, 'Daniel, servant of the living God, was your God, whom you serve so faithfully, able to rescue you from the lions?'" From this, we see that the king is intrigued by the God that Daniel serves. At first, he said to Daniel, "May the God you serve faithfully rescue you." And now we see the king fasting on behalf of Daniel. So we know that he truly does not want Daniel to be destroyed by the lions. The king even had enough faith to wake up early that morning and go out and call to Daniel to make sure that he was still alive. So we see that God is working this out to reveal himself once again to the people of this kingdom. Verse 21, Daniel answered, "Long live the king. My God sent his angel to shut the lion's mouth so that they would not hurt me, for I have been found innocent in his sight, and I have not wronged you, your majesty." With this said, I just want to go to Ephesians 6:10, and it says, "A final word, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on all of God's armor so that you will be able to stand firm against all the strategies of the devil. For we are not fighting against flesh and blood enemies, but against evil rulers and authorities of the unseen world, against mighty powers of this dark world, and against evil spirits in the heavenly places." These verses are so significant because Daniel's reaction was not to lash out at the administrators and the officials. Daniel's reaction was to go to the Most High God, to ask him for help, to give thanksgiving. He put on his armor. He knew that the battle was a spiritual thing, and he put on the armor of God, and he yielded his spiritual weapons. And although evil came against Daniel, just like Elijah said, there is more for him than against him. God sent angels to shut the mouth of the lion so that Daniel's life could be spared. God saw Daniel as innocent. God saw that Daniel did no wrong, and God sent angels to shut the mouth of the lion as a response to Daniel's posture of prayer and thanksgiving. Verse 23 says, "The king was overjoyed and ordered that Daniel be lifted from the den. Not a scratch was found on him, for he had trusted in his God." God did not exempt Daniel from the trial, but God saw it fit that he got through the trial without a scratch on his body. It is God's will that we will go through some things, but his assurance is that he will see us through it. He will be there with us in it, and allow us to make it to the other side. We have that assurance and that hope that God is faithful. Verse 24 reads, Then the king gave orders to arrest the man who maliciously accused Daniel. He had them thrown into the lion's den along with their wives and children. The lions leaped on them and tore them apart before they even hit the floor of the den. This is an example of when God says that he will prepare a table in the presence of your enemies. Vengeance belongs to the Lord. It is not for us to seek vengeance on those who accuse us, on those who persecute us, but we can be assured that as we put our faith in God and that we're faithful to God in our actions and in our responses, that God, he sees all, he knows all, and God, as he gets the glory through us and our actions, that he will vindicate us in the end. Let's go to Psalms 37, 1-6. And it says, Don't worry about the wicked or envy those who do wrong. For like grass, they soon fade away. Like spring flowers, they soon wither. Trust in the Lord and do good. Then you will live safely in the land and prosper. Take delight in the Lord, and he will give you your heart's desires. Commit everything you do to the Lord. Trust him, and he will help you. He will make your innocence radiate like the dawn, and the justice of your cause will shine like the noonday. I want to jump down to verse 14. The wicked draw their swords and string their bows to kill the poor and the oppressed, to slaughter those who do right. But their swords will stab their own hearts, and their bows will be broken. The same sentence that they tried to put upon Daniel was the sentence that was bestowed back on them, and that was the sentence that killed them. They tried to kill Daniel, but the same way that they tried to kill Daniel was the way that they were killed. And that is the justice of the Lord. Psalms 135:14 reads, For the Lord will give justice to his people and have compassion on his servants. Once again, Daniel was found blameless, and the Lord saw that and he honored that. Verse 25 of Daniel 6 reads, Then King Darius sent this message to the people of every race and nation and language throughout the world. Peace and prosperity to you. I declare that everyone throughout my kingdom should tremble with fear before the God of Daniel. For he is the living God, and he will endure forever. His kingdom will never be destroyed, and his rule will never end. This is the third time in Daniel so far where a king proclaimed that God is the Lord Most High. So God used the trials and the tribulations to bring glory to himself through the faithful vessels of Daniel. We see Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the other chapters, but he's using his people, the situation where they was taken captive from their land, taken into the land of Babylon, and forced to serve the king. He's using this situation, and we're seeing how God is turning that situation around, that he can get the glory out of it. Verse 27, he rescues and saves his people. He performs miraculous signs and wonders in the heavens and on the earth. He has rescued Daniel from the power of lions. So Daniel prospered during the reign of Darius and the reign of Cyrus the Persian. God is so faithful. All over this chapter, that's all you see, God's faithfulness and God's goodness. And we serve a mighty God, a God who can shut the mouth of a lion and prevent you from even getting a scratch, even in the face of adversity. The God who can rescue you from the fire and allow you to come out without smelling like smoke. That is the God that we serve. He is so awesome and worthy to be praised. So we will stop the Bible study here. I pray, as always, that it was a blessing to you. I want to hear from you guys. So when you read Daniel 6, what did God reveal to you? Comment that below. And once again, I thank you for watching this video. I pray that you have a blessed day.